Hi, this is Becky Nunn with Nunn Design, guest designer here at Beadaholique. In this video, I want to show you how you can embed seed beads while they're still on the string into epoxy clay, crystal clay, to create fun pieces like this. And in this example, you can see that I used an open back bezel and it's actually double-sided. You can use it to embed into little earrings. You can use it to embed for little accents. Here I embedded it in the earring post and also in a round channel bead, so you can create looks like this. Here it is again in the same channel bead but in a necklace form. Here they are as accents in an earring. And on this piece up here, this is the piece that I'm going to show us how to make. For this video, you'll need to select some Nunn Design bezels to work with. You can choose either open back bezels or solid back bezels. As you're seeing here, you could do this same technique even in a ring or some of the earrings. You can also use any of the Itsy bottles. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can use a bezel like this and a bezel like this in an open back bezel. So you'll need some bezels and you'll need to have some crystal clay. This is a 2-part epoxy clay. You have in your kit the resin itself. It comes with a pair of gloves, and it also comes with a little beeswax toothpick that allows you to pick things up. And this product, you have 2 to 2.5 hours to work with it after you've mixed it, and then it fully air dries and cures in 14 to 16 hours, and there's no baking required. So inside of the kit, the crystal clay kit, you'll receive everything that you'll need for the crystal clay part. You'll also want to have some seed beads. I'm using the Preciosa traditional Czech seed beads that are already on the string, like you see it there. And you'll need, I already pinched off 2 equal-sized balls of clay and have mixed it together. So the first part of this is you're going to take your bezels that you're going to work with. I'm going to use this one and this one. And we're going to clean them thoroughly with a little bit of rubbing alcohol. So the rubbing alcohol helps release any of the oxidization that is on the bezels. These are lead-free cast pewter bezels that are made in the United States. And then we plate them with 24 karat gold, 0.999 fine silver, and then we have a copper. I like to go ahead and clean my bezels thoroughly because first of all, it's a really good idea to do it. And it also helps the epoxies, the resins and the clay attach fully to the bezels. Go ahead and get a little bit of the rubbing alcohol on your Q-tip and just gently rub away at the bezel, and you'll pick up any excess oxidization that's on the piece. Go ahead and do my little bezel here. When I'm working with the black clay, the chances of me discoloring my clay at all is pretty minimal, but if you're working with white or other colors, you want to make sure that the oxidization and that your bezels are just very clean. I like to work with little business cards. It doesn't matter so much on this because I can move these pieces around and it's not going to spill, but it still allows me a surface to rest my pieces on. Right, now that you're done with the rubbing alcohol, I need to put a backing onto the back of this so that my crystal clay will stay in position. So I have a little bit of packing tape. Just peel off a small amount, cut it, lay your bezel down onto the tape and press down firmly, and then you can burnish it down fully onto the tape by moving it back and forth. Then once it's burnished and fully adhered onto there, go ahead and cut off your excess so it doesn't stick onto other things like the sleeve of your shirt or something like that. All right, so the next step we're going to do with this is we're going to have mixed, I already pinched off the equal size balls, and I've let my clay sit for just about 15 minutes because right when I mixed it, it was very, very, very soft and moist. And if you let it sit for a little while, it'll help activate it, and so it'll get a little bit firmer before we start to embed it into the bezel. So the next step is you're going to pinch off a size that's appropriate to whatever you're working on. So I'm going to guess that that ball there is going to be about the size of filling this bezel. It might actually even be a little bit shy of filling the bezel because I want it to come flush to the top of that surface. So I have a little ball about that size, guesstimating that that's probably going to be enough. This is something that's just going to take time and figuring out, so you might have to pull this apart, roll it into a ball, stick it in there, see I have too much or too little. You'll just get the hang of it with time. So once I have the clay amount that I think that I need, I'm using the palms of my hands to make a nice round ball with the clay. And I'm picking up my bezel and I'm patting the clay down in to the bezel. So one of the reasons why I wanted it to be a nice smooth ball before I started to do this is because if you have a little crease into the clay, it's just much easier to start out with a nice smooth ball versus having a crease in there. I'm using my thumb to push the clay up and into this little corner up here, and I'm also using my fingers underneath to give it support. So I pressed it all the way up into that corner, and I'm pulling it back down into this area. Now if I had too much clay, I could pinch off a little bit and then continue to pat it down again, or if I didn't have enough clay, I can press this in and then add more clay. So I'd mix another small ball in a nice round circle, press it in, and then put it over the top of it. But my ultimate goal is to have a nice flush surface in which to embed the seed beads into. I'm going to focus mainly on this piece right now. And so the next step of what this is that we're going to need to do is I'm going to wipe the crystal clay off my fingers. I want to make sure that my fingers and my hands stay really clean because this clay will get onto the surface of my bezels, and once it's hardened, it will be like cement. Next I'm going back in and I'm wiping off any of that crystal clay that got on the rim, and I can see that I have a little bit of a gap over here. So it's my opportunity to move that clay over into that area and make sure that it's flush right to that edge. Wiping it down. All right, next I'm ready to start embedding the chain into the bezel. Actually, we're going to use the seed beads on this one, so I'm going to find my end mark. After I've used some, I tie a little loop on there so that I can easily identify which one I'm ready to work with. You just pull that loop out and we're ready to start embedding this. Move this out of the way so we can have a really clear view. So for the starters of this, I'm keeping a nice taut, so all my seed beads are kept very tight together. So I tighten this around my finger and I'm laying it down into the base of the bezel. I'm mostly wanting just to tack it into position. This first little bit is one of the more challenging parts, is just getting that the seed bead started. So I laid it down into the base of the clay, and I'm slightly tacking it down, and I'm keeping it right on the outside edge of the clay. And you see how this started to give us a little gap? Make sure that I pull my string tight so that I keep all of those seed beads tightly together. And I continue to move around the outside edge, gently tacking it and putting it into place. See how I'm keeping my finger on this so that it keeps the seed beads tight on the string. So you have a little gap there. I'm actually getting to the end of my seed beads. So I'm coming around. For the first time when you're doing this, it might be a good idea to do a closed back bezel, but I really wanted to show you how you can use an open back bezel. The closed back bezel, you won't have to deal with this tape that's underneath, and that's causing it to get stuck onto the string. So I've come all the way around to the ending, to where I started, and I'm double checking to see my closing point. I still need a couple more seed beads in there, and I think I might be close to the end of my strand. So I'll show you how you can actually add more onto that area. I'm going to pull that out. Whoa, hang on, I have to remove this. I'm going to go ahead and cut my string on this end so I can remove it from this cluster, which might have been a good idea to start with. Once I have it all the way back up to pretty much my starting point, I'm going to tack it down a little bit more firmly, and now I'm ready to pull my string out. So there it goes. So now all my beads are embedded into the clay. And I can go back in and add a single bead right up here to get a nice sharp point at the very top. Now I'm pressing down the clay very firmly. I'm pressing the seed beads down into the clay firmly so that they're fully attached. Now you don't want to push too hard because it'll get kind of wonky and the surface will be all different levels, but that'll give you a great outside edge to start with. So I'm going to actually remove this next round. I'm going to actually remove it. Oops, it looks like I had some on a strand. I'm going to remove it from this strand. I have a long bit of seed beads to work with. These seed beads are sold by the hank. So you have a lot of these beads to work with. So starting at the very top, right where we stopped off, we're going to embed the first bit. Just gently pressing down. Again, I'm keeping tight the string of beads so that there's not a lot of slack and gaps in between. Rotating it around. pressing it into position. See what I mean? It's kind of more challenging on this tape because this keeps on getting attached to the tape. It might be handy to have a toothpick or two handy so that you can actually, I want to keep this in place and make sure that my seed beads don't get unraveled while I unhear this from my tape surface. There we go. And lay that down into the clay. Then once you have this all the way embedded, we're going to do the same thing as we did last time and pull out our string. So all of that is now into position and we're ready to pull out the string. And keep my finger here so that I can keep these beginning beads in position. And I pulled out the string and now all my seed beads are in place. Next round. Start at the beginning. Press down. Move the strand of seed beads around in the drop position. Bring it up to the top. Stuck on the tape again. Now we're ready to pull this out. So keep the start and stop point in position where you need it, and then pull the string gently and remove all of the seed beads off of the string. Move it into position. So I'm moving the beads around slightly. I'm pressing them out to the side so that they're right next to the next row that they just were embedded in. And I'm just making sure that they're fully down into the clay. Next, starting point. So at some point we're not going to be able to make this curve here with the seed beads. And so we can start and stop in strips. I think we're still going to make this curve here. So our next round is embedded. We look at where that last seed bead's going to drop in. I'm going to cover it up for a second while I pull this string out. I'm just holding it in position while that string is removed. And now all my beads are in the clay. And then we're going to do another one. I think we're starting to get to the place where we can't do that radius turn, so I'm going to just do a strip. I'm going to start right here at the top. Do my best. Let me see if I can use a toothpick so you can see better so my fingers aren't in the way. I'm going to move that bead and put it into position right at the top. Pick up some of that slack. Move that top bead into position right there. Yikes. I might just let some of those beads on the top, they'll just come off. So that See, I had a couple of extra beads. I didn't start right where my first bead was. I just kind of started a little bit farther down. And then I can't do a radius very well. Let me see if I can. I don't think I can. But, oh, I'm going to do it. I'm going to use my toothpick to move those beads tighter. I'm putting my finger down right where my ending point is so that I can remove the string and keep those beads. I had 2 extra beads on there. And so these extra little beads, we're going to use that beeswax toothpick that was in the kit. I can find it so that I can pick it up and lay it down into that little start and stop area. I can't seem to find it, so I'm going to have to just use a toothpick to show you. Yeah, hopefully that'll work. I got the toothpick slightly wet. And then you can just lay that top bead right inside of there and press it down into position. And you can continue to do that with the other pieces if you want to. Like I pulled out and there looks like there's a bead or 2 that's missing here. So I'm just going to add another bead right there. And for these last couple of beads, I can come in here and add a couple more. Once your beads are all in position, use your fingers. I'm going to pick this piece up. And I'm actually pressing down and pressing up at the same time, kind of in a pinching fashion. And I'm embedding all of those seed beads down into the crystal clay. So there you have it. That's pretty fun, huh? So when your piece is, when you've got all of these little guys embedded down in there firmly, you're going to want to come back in again and just wipe it gently and remove any of that crystal clay. You might have had a little bit on your fingers, or some of it might have gotten on the beads, so you can wipe it away. And you'll also see if any of the beads pop out, that's indicated that your bead wasn't fully embedded into the surface, and then you can use your toothpick to add more beads as you saw there. But it's really important that you press firmly and embed these down into the clay so that they will fully be adhered. Then on the back side, when this piece is cured, about 12 hours, you'll take your piece. Here's one that I did earlier. This is now rock hard. And I'm going to just remove this tape. On this piece, you see how I trimmed the tape much tighter. I highly would have recommended that I do that, because you can see that I got some of the seed beads stuck on the side. And on this piece, I had a really tight trim of where that tape was, and so it didn't interfere as much with the string. Once this is fully cured, you're just going to peel back the tape off the back side. And you have a nice finished pendant. After 12 hours, your crystal clay will be fully cured, and you can link the pieces together using the Nunn design jump rings and finishing off with the lobster clasp, or you can make a charm bracelet, or you can even use it on a little itsy bottle or make some earrings. If you'd like to see me making this piece, please join us in the Facebook Live episode in which I show you how to make this project right here. This is Becky Nunn with Nunn Design, showing how you can embed seed beads into crystal clay to make fun jewelry projects. Thanks for joining us.